In this episode of the Engineering Career Coach podcast, we're going to talk about something fun, which is having fun in the workplace. Let's be honest, if you can't have fun in your engineering job, then what's the point of having that job, right? So we're going to talk to Scott Harvey Lewis, who's having a lot of fun at M2E Consulting Engineers, and he's going to give you a little bit of the recipe and the inside of how they're having fun there. And he's also going to give some very interesting and important career and life advice towards the end of the episode. All right, let's jump right in. All right, so now I'm excited to welcome Scott Harvey Lewis, Vice President at M2E Consulting Engineers, to the Engineering Career Coach podcast. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me. I know we've been back and forth trying to arrange the meeting, but finally we have the same schedule.
That's right. A lot of busy. We talk with a lot of busy engineers here, so I know how that goes. But so the reason I reached out to you is because M2E does a lot of really cool things on social media and video, and you guys look like you have just a lot of fun in the office there. And we're going to get into that. But before we do that, Scott, just for the listeners and our viewers, give us a little background on yourself in terms of your career and your journey and what you do.
It's not to bore people, but I was born in Jamaica. I went to school there, and then somebody told me it was the best place to go to for college. So I ended up in the States. I went to a college that I had never heard of before. Somebody presented me with the application.
Right.
First time I saw the college, I was being dropped off, and from there, I ended up doing engineering, and I changed majors from aerospace to civil midway just because I realized I didn't like planes that much. And then my grandfather was an architect, so the closest thing that the school offered was civil engineering with structural. So that's what I ended up doing. And the first job was structural, and then since then, that's kind of been the path until later on with the downturn, it switched from doing design to more forensic / investigations and litigation support and so on. It was almost like reverse engineering. So with the downturn in the economy, it kind of put me into a niche, which I found out that I actually liked.
Okay.
And at this point, I guess I'm doing well in it. But there was no secret to, this is finally, I always want to do this or so on. It was just life pushed me in different areas. And at the end of the day, I found something that I really enjoy. And the company I really enjoy as well. That's
great, because what you just described to me was basically, not that you didn't plan, but what I'm saying is like the least amount of planning. Like, you heard about the college, you showed up, you went to college, your grandfather was an architect, so you went with civil. You didn't like planes, you went with civil. And you ended up somewhere that looks like, from watching you through social media, we're connected on LinkedIn. It looks like you're having a lot of fun doing great things. Of course, you're in Southern Florida now, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm. In West Palm Beach.
And so how did you get to M2E?
So the school I went to was in Melbourne, Florida, which is and change north. And when I switched from my first job to my second, they relocated me to West Palm Beach. So one interesting thing, or a couple interesting things about my career, is I feel like I have a good sense of not just work, but also different cultures and companies, because I've worked at 7 different places.
Okay.
And they've ranged from Fortune 500 companies with thousands of employees to, 1 to 2 office firm with less than 50. And I've gone through, mergers or acquisitions. I've gone through an office closing down and me losing my job because the office is closed. I've gone through startups. I've gone through, good bosses. I've gone through not so good bosses. I've gone through really the gamut of everything. Some of it self-inflicted, some of it circumstance. So
right.
I think just based on, like you said, sometimes maybe the wrong place at the wrong time, right place, right time.
Right.
I've been able to see a lot. So I feel like I can really not just tell people, I guess, good advice on certain situations, whether it's changing jobs or, what job looks better on paper, but I've actually gone through a lot that many people don't go through because, some people stay in the same place all their life, which is not a bad thing either.
Right. That's great. And I tell you what, man, you look pretty young for having all those experiences. So good for you. You stayed young through all that stuff. All right. So tell us about M2E, just so the audience knows what kind of services they provide, and how big are they, just so we know kind of where you're working now.
So M2E is a niche firm. And why do I say it? We were specifically formed to service existing buildings and institutions. So we have every discipline in-house. So we're not just civil engineers, we're mechanical, we're electrical, we're architects, and we're geared towards providing services to mostly high-rise, high-end condominiums, taking them through different investigations, whether it's for the law. So building gets built, it needs to be turned over, and by law they need to have an engineering evaluation. Or in South Florida, there's a 40-year recertification that has to happen by law. So we do that, and then inevitably with construction there are defects and deficiencies. So we're brought in to investigate that and provide opinions on what went wrong and provide litigation support to attorneys. And so not that we can't do design, but we've just been formed in a way that we are on the reverse side of engineering.
Okay.
And we're doing pretty well at it. In terms of size, we're a local firm to South Florida, but we are actually the largest firm that does what we do in South Florida. Not maybe the largest firm in numbers, but
right.
In this area, we have about 70 employees that do primarily this, which is the largest amount of employees in this area doing that.
That's great. And so I'm going to pick Scott's brain about some different things. Obviously, he's got a lot of great experiences, but one of the things we want to talk about, Scott, which is when I reached out to you, is you guys are very active on social media. You do a lot of videos, a lot of funny videos, and it just looks like everyone there is having so much fun. Is that really part of your, focus, culture? It just is making your work fun part of what you focus on as the leadership of M2E?
I think it isn't, we didn't sit on one day and say, we want to make work fun. I think our backgrounds, I'm from Jamaica, and Jamaica is a more light-hearted nation, so we just generally are more jovial. And the other principals are from Serbia, and they're more family-oriented, and I think cultures are different than what you usually see in the United States. So by nature, we're different. And one of the ways I describe it to people is in Jamaica and in Serbia as well, if I invite you to my home, I'm inviting you to entertain you, right? You're not going to call me. In Jamaica, you don't call somebody and say, okay, what am I bringing? Because it's obvious if I'm inviting you, you're being taken care of. And it's the same thing in Europe. We are here to entertain you. So in the US, it's a little different. Somebody invites you to the house, it's like, what do I bring? You bring this. And at the end of the day, everybody brings a meal.
Right.
I feel like if you expand that to work, the way that we take it is you're working with us, and we're here not just to give you work and to make money, but we want you to enjoy the company as well. And we want to provide you with things to make your life better. And if we focus on the employees that way, then it's natural that they have a good time as well, and that they have a better platform to perform. And so I've always been treated well by my bosses. So I try my best to treat my employees well as well. And I think it's just more to do with background. And the reason why there was a push on social media was, personally, we didn't have a really good website at one point, and we're still working on that. And so it was hard to, not to sell M2E, but if I'm trying to hire somebody and they go online, they don't know who M2E is. We may have a really great place to work, but if you don't know us, then you're going off of just word of mouth, and that wouldn't be enough. So at first I just said, we have a really good workplace, let's broadcast it. And it wasn't like we staged things. A lot of it is just impromptu videos. Right. It's just how we are on a daily basis. Sometimes, people come in and they're like, oh, you're actually the way you guys are presented. And it's, it's just, how do you get people to know what you are without, using the internet nowadays?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, it's great. And I'm glad you said that, because, not just about, shooting these funny, great videos to broadcast. It's really you guys just being who you are and just putting it online. Right. Yeah. And I think that that's great. What you said is when someone comes there, they see like, oh, wow, that's just really you. Like, I'm just watching you. Because I think sometimes social media is not that, right? It's people just putting out all the good stuff. And then, it's kind of like a false advertisement, so to speak. And so that's good to hear you say that. And how do your employees take to, I mean, obviously I'm sure they like the fun atmosphere, but are they okay with the videos and being online, the social media? And because honestly, that's work too, right?
So surprisingly, let's say the most intricate video we ever did probably took 30 minutes. Okay. We usually do it in one take, and it's not like a scripted thing that we're like, okay, this is your script. A lot of it is just like, hey, this is a good idea. Let's, tell me how you feel, and it's just videotaped.
Litigation be like, how you feeling? How you feeling?
I want to cry.
And so it takes a lot less time than people think. Everybody's different. Some people love being on camera. Some people are more shy. But I think at the end of the day, as a group, when we do it together, we have more fun with it. And people have lots of laughs. And it's almost like a team building exercise each time. And there's always good memories. We never look back at videos and are like, oh man, that was such a boring thing. Or
right.
Again, it's a lot less intensive than it looks. And it's a lot more natural than it looks too. So it's nothing is scripted. So it comes off pretty easy. And, at one point it was always videos with fun, but recently I've been trying to kind of diversify the content. So sometimes it's more educational. Sometimes it's more about me. Sometimes it's the group. So we're trying to at least balance it, that it's not, oh, all these guys do is have fun. We actually do a lot of work as well, which, hopefully that comes across as
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think and I was going to ask you, how do people have time to do this when they're working on projects? But I mean, you basically just explain that. It's like, we're not doing anything out of the ordinary. We're just kind of being ourselves and turn on the camera once in a while. Right. So it's not like people have a lot of prep time or things like that for these videos. So that's great. But how did you, I mean, obviously you're, a big part of the social media there. Like you said, I see you doing videos now about, some recommendations, like how to select an engineer. I saw you do something like that, which was really informative. And so how about you? Like, how did you learn how to do this social media stuff? Is it just from learning and just doing it?
Yeah, I think it's trial and error. So I've been consistently posting for about a year, almost exactly a year. Because when we moved into the new space, I probably did a video showing like, hey, this is our new office. Can't believe we're moving already. And at the time, I thought it got good response. It got over, let's say, almost 2,000 views, a few, like 50 likes. And I was like, oh my goodness, social media is awesome. People like it. And then, you realize that it's not as easy as that. So, I posted some things went well, some things flopped. But at the end of the day, what I found out is you have to provide value. So you can't just be always doing something funny or just here's a funny picture. It has to provide some context to things. You have to figure out what are you trying to do. And a lot of it is just trial and error. So I think I never started out thinking I'm good at social media. Actually, I don't even use any other social media than LinkedIn. If somebody tried to look me up, there's nothing else I use. And it was kind of born out of necessity. Like I said, we didn't have a strong online presence with a website. Right. And it was, how would you put things out? How do I let people know we actually have a good workplace? So that was the first reason why. And then when you get a lot of feedback of people saying, I enjoy your posts, or, what you said really helped me, or, finally a company that people are being themselves, it kind of feeds the momentum of it, because you realize it's actually affecting people in a positive way. So
that's great.
Kind of hard to stop.
Yeah. And it's really good to hear, because I do know that a lot of engineers, I mean, listen, there's so many engineering companies out there, but a lot of engineers I talk to, they are in places where, it isn't necessarily fun. And, that ultimately is a lot of times a driver of why they would leave a company, right? If either their manager or it's not a fun workplace. So all that's great. And it's happy to see it. And I'm happy to continue to watch you guys and see how that grows as your company grows, which I think will be interesting. But flipping over to a couple other topics here, because you've had a lot of experience in, as you said earlier, different situations. One of the bigger discussions in our industry today is the idea of this diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And
right.
I mean, Southern Florida is a very diverse place. You already explained to us how diverse your company is with different cultural leadership. Yourself, you grew up in Jamaica. How does that benefit a company, right? Everyone's talking about diversity and inclusion. What are the benefits of that? Because I know that there are many benefits, and you're experiencing on a regular basis.
Well, one thing in this office, and I think, again, it's just kind of circumstance. It was a new office. I had to add people rapidly. And sometimes it wasn't the most experienced person for the job, but they end up being the right person anyway. And, you know, there were females, they were different from people in different countries. There's younger engineers, older engineers. It's almost like you had to use what was available, right? But what has happened is, you know, with a new market and a new office, and also not changing product, but trying to make a product better as you go along, you realize the more diverse the team, the better the output. And why do I say it? Because everybody brings something different to the table. So
Right.
I have my strengths, I have my weaknesses. I have other people in the office that have strengths that maybe are my weaknesses. But if I'm the boss, I tell you how to do, and don't recognize I have weaknesses, then at the end of the day, who's productive is it? Is it M2E's or is it mine? So one thing that we do in the office consistently is the best idea wins. So the intern could come in and say, listen, at school, we've used this new program, and it does it this way. And if it's the best idea, it wins.
Right.
Nobody in this office is, well, this is how we do it here.
Right.
Or this is the way, because if we did it that way, then how would we grow? And everybody has brought good ideas to the table. And so, you know, it's, sometimes you read all these companies, oh, well, they have the brainstorming event and this, and diversity and all these catchy terms. But at the end of the day, it's just being people. You know, like if you attack it from the sense that we're all equal, like nobody's better than somebody else, and we all have good ideas, and we're all professionals, and everybody's important, really, then you won't have to come up with catchy terms, because we're just being people.
Just being people, just being yourself, just letting everybody contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody feels valued. And, you know, we have meetings when a project finishes, and we ask the staff engineers, or like, you know, whoever worked on the project, like, what could we do better? And they come up with the best ideas because they're actually doing the work. You know, as a manager, you know, it's funny, like I've had managers before, and they say, well, it's going to take this amount and this amount. And it reminds me of, like, you know, Michael Jordan right now. He may have been the best basketball player, but if he goes and plays basketball right now, he's not going to be that good. Right? Because he's not playing with the players right now. And maybe the game has changed a little bit. So, like, things change. And so the real players right now are the ones that need to be telling you how things operate. Not, you know, in the good old days, you know, I used to do it like this. Or, I mean, that stuff is gone. I mean, you know, we keep on growing.
That's great. And kind of what I'm taking away from our conversation in general, whether it's social media, whether it's diversity and inclusion, it's just people being themselves.
That's it.
Right? It's people being themselves, people having fun, you know, not this idea that, you know, you have fun when you leave work for the day, right? That's not the case. It's you just go to work, you have fun, you meet people, you work with people you like, you interact. Everybody has a chance to contribute, right?
Yeah.
And you go home and you have fun with your family, you do something else. But, you know, I think that's important philosophy, you know, for people.
Think about it, at the end of the day, if this was free, if we weren't paying, or we weren't being paid to come to work, how many people would actually show up for the day? That's a question you got to answer. So, and then other people think, well, the clients are most important, which they are important, but you have to treat your internal clients better. And the reason why is because if you do, they're going to treat your clients as best as possible. So it's almost like a chain reaction. People focus on the bottom line and the clients, and then they try to drop all benefits down to the bare minimum for the employees, or even, let's say, they bring it up to where they think is okay, but they're stuck in some type of rigid model, and they don't try to focus it on each employee because everybody is different. At the end of the day, that person is going to be frustrated. They're going to be on the phone with the client, and how are they going to sell something and be happy if they're frustrated with their employer? Doesn't make sense. So, you know, the focus I have when I'm dealing with everybody is everybody's individual. Everybody's problems are different. Everybody's circumstances are different. So I have to treat everybody in some flexible nature that is reasonable. And usually, you know, what I found is if somebody is a really good person and a good performer, they're also usually really reasonable. So they're not asking for much. It could be very simple things that you just tweak and it makes their day. And then they become a very good representative for you.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, not just focusing on your clients, because I know that has been something of the past of engineering companies, but you have to think about, you said it perfect, your internal clients, right? Your team, because they're the ones who are actually going to end up providing the value for the clients if they're happy and if they're connected and engaged in the workplace.
Sure.
That's great. All right, so we've talked about quite a bit here with Scott. I'm going to ask him to stick around for our last segment here, and we're going to just dive in with a few more questions related to his career. So we'll come back in just a minute for that. All right, so we're back with Scott Harvey Lewis of M2E, and we've had a really interesting conversation around social media in the workplace, fun in the workplace, diversity in the workplace. But now we've got to go back to what Scott talked about early on. He's been in almost every career type of situation: small companies, startups, office closed, fast growing companies. So to kind of wrap this episode up, Scott, let's say you're up in front of a room with a group of engineering professionals and they're saying, Scott, listen, you've been through so many things in your career. What are some of the things that jump to mind that if you had to give kind of career advice to people, what would you think to say?
The first thing that comes to mind is focus on the journey and not your end goal. So live almost in the moment and do your best work in the moment. Don't think about any other distractions of, oh, this person, or what's that person doing, or my friend over here has this, or, the grass is always greener. I'd say take every moment that you have, do your very best job, work as hard as you can within reason, and take every opportunity to learn the most you can. That's one segment, because I think in my early career, I was always focused on, well, I want to be in charge, or I want the most money, and I want all this. And, at the end of the day, you might end up in situations that you put yourself in for the wrong reasons, and nobody can ever take away from you the fact that you worked hard for them and that you did a good job. That goes with you wherever you go.
Right.
And that's something that is for yourself, just like your education is for yourself and your training is for yourself. Your reputation is for yourself. And your circumstances change. So the way you think when you're 22 coming out of college is different than when you're 35 with a family.
Right.
So sometimes I look at myself, back in the day, and I'm like, you are so stupid. Like the things that were important to you and the things that you were fighting for weren't even important. Right. So I would say just always focus on doing good work, providing value to your supervisor, to your company, looking of what you can do for them as opposed to what can they do for you. Because it's almost like a relationship that goes together. If you're doing a lot for them, then inevitably they'll do a lot for you. And if they don't, then you might be in the wrong place.
Right. Right.
So you don't want to regret the fact that you didn't give all, because people see it and it won't go unnoticed. And then the other piece of advice I would give besides working hard is, and focusing on the journey is, just be humble,
Yeah.
The best people I work with, they have a level of humility. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses. They don't oversell, they don't undersell. They're just, humble people, and they want to help you. And that's, work hard, be humble. That's probably it.
That's great. And one last thing I'll ask you, Scott, because it sounds like you've dealt with it several times in your career, which is adversity. Something happens. You said an office closed and I lost my job. What do you say to an engineer that is dealing with that right now? Or, how do you deal with adversity in your career? What's your mindset around that?
One, I think, at the time when things happen, you're flustered and you're like, oh man, life sucks. But those things make you stronger if you use it to your advantage. So I think if anybody's facing adversity, just build yourself up. If you're looking for a job, be prepared to go into the job and sell yourself to them based on your research, knowing what they need. You have to provide value to anybody. So if I meet a client, I'm not just going and they ask me, oh, what does M2 do? And I'm like, oh, well, we're engineers. Like, I do research on them. I try to find out how can I best serve them. Maybe I'm not even the best engineer for them. And I'll tell them, I'm not the best engineer for you. This person maybe. So I'm always honest and open. And I think for anybody, that's the way to be. You can't, things happen that's out of your control, but you can always make your circumstances better, but it's on you. It's not, you can't just be sitting there waiting for something to drop into your lap. You got to work hard for things and figure out what value you bring to the table and then sell that and become confident in it.
Awesome. All right. Scott Harvey Lewis, M2E Consulting Engineers. Thank you for spending some time with us on the Engineering Career Coach podcast.
My pleasure. It went by quickly.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Anthony.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave your comments and or questions in the comments section below this video. Also, if you'd like to view the full show notes for this episode, visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org or see the link in the video description. There you will find the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during the episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering career endeavors.